Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Monday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and on Saturday, the deal was publicly announced, almost officially. The New York Mets are in the process of acquiring Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz from the Seattle Mariners, along with $20 million in cash in exchange for Jay Bruce, Anthony Swarzak, Jared Kelenic, Justin Dunn, and Gershon Batista. This deal is pending physical, so it's not done, but it's close to done. Not D-U-N-N, but D-O-N-E. And I want to talk about that deal today, but I want to talk about another deal that's been rumored and seems to be picking up some steam as of yesterday. I want to talk about the merits of these rumors. I went on a bit of a tirade yesterday on Twitter. I just got a little tired of reading this opinion and theory passed off as fact by Mets fans and by Mets Twitter in general. And I tweeted something along the lines of, look, number one, nobody knows that Brodie Van Wagenen was doing his best buddy Robinson Cano a favor by bringing him to New York. Nobody knows that there was ever $60 million on the table and that Brodie Van Wagenen was, quote, negotiated down from 60 to 20 like an idiot. Love that theory. Nobody knows that Robinson Cano is washed up. Right? There are so many things that nobody knows, and just because pessimism is so much fun, apparently, that's the direction everyone seems to want to go in talking about this trade. And my thought on this was like, look, people, nobody knows anything at this point. All right, we're 1 day away from the deal being formally announced, and it isn't even official yet. And yet we're already deeming this the worst trade ever. Fire Van Wagenen. I mean, it's beyond absurd. And all I'll say is that even when this season starts and finishes, we won't be able to evaluate this trade. This trade can't effectively be evaluated for at least 3 years. And one thing will happen in the next 3 years. Robinson Cano will be an effective player, and Edwin Diaz will be an effective closer. Jay Bruce and Anthony Swarzak will be fine players, whatever. But that's sort of the first step in evaluating. How about the current major leaguers? How are they performing? If Cano is terrible and he's washed up and he's lost a step and he's lazy and all of the other things that Mets Twitter is already deeming him, then we can say, boy, Brodie got fleeced on that one. But if he's tearing the cover off the ball, if he's driving the ball gap to gap, if he's making solid contact, if he's not striking out at his typical not striking out rate, if he's got a 300 or so batting average, if he's playing a decent second base, you got to take your head out of your ass, people. None of this stuff has happened yet. And then after the 3 and 4 year mark, you're going to see Kelenic and Dunn make their debuts in Seattle. Are they ready? What kind of players are they going to be? We don't know. This clinging to prospects is just brutal. And we have no idea whether or not these prospects will amount into anything. Do they have high upsides? Do they have are they profiling as something? Absolutely. Is it a gamble to trade away these prospects? Absolutely. But guess what, peeps? It's just as much of a gamble to hold on to them, hoping that they'll pan out. How did that work out for Lastings Millage? How did that work out for Fernando Martinez, Alex Ochoa? The list goes on and on and on and on and on of prospects that the Mets held on to and failed. And the same number, guess what? The same number is true of prospects that the Mets traded away and they thrived. It's baseball. It's not a Mets thing. So stop it with the negativity, peeps. Speaking of prospects thriving and not thriving and being able to evaluate something, the second thing I want to talk about today is the rumor yesterday that seems to be picking up a lot of steam, which is Corey Kluber being traded to the Mets. And I'm confused about this one. And here's why. So we talked about Dunn and Kelenic and Batista being unproven major league talent, right? They're making little money, right? They have a very, very low cost profile, but we have no idea whether or not they'll be effective pitchers in the major leagues. Well, the Mets have another player who is already an effective pitcher in the major leagues. not making that much money and who doesn't require any players, parting with any players rather, to acquire. And that's Noah Syndergaard. And the part that bothers me about this, not to say that I wouldn't want Corey Kluber, because, I mean, Corey Kluber's fantastic, all right? But to trade Syndergaard for either major league talent or to restock the farm system, only to have to turn around and trade for Corey Kluber, doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, it's not, but that's very similar to that. You know, you're taking something in that looks really good, and then you're turning around and getting rid of it to get a pitcher that you've traded away. Except the guy you've traded away is sort of homegrown, a lot younger, and is a little bit further from free agency. So I don't know. I'm not quite sure why this Kluber talk is continuing. I just don't like the idea of the Mets having to trade away Brandon Nimmo or any other minor league talent like Andres Jimenez, who they were able to hang on to in this deal with the Mariners. They were also able to hang on to Jeff McNeil. I want to talk about that in 1 second also. But the bottom line here is I don't understand the Kluber trade talk when Syndergaard is still being considered as a trade chip. It just doesn't add up to me. So I'm hoping that all of this is just noise and that the Mets aren't really legitimately shopping Noah Syndergaard. It's more like, hey, it's like you walk into the jewelry store and you see the $47,000 diamond ring that looks awesome in the case, but you're like, I can't afford that. That's kind of the same as this, I hope. I hope that this is just sort of like the thing that's in the showcase and that looks really shiny, but you're not going to accept anything less than a ridiculous amount in return for it. And I think that's the case with Syndergaard. And I think all of this Kluber noise is just that. It's just noise. I don't think there's anything to it. At least I hope there's not. But we'll see. This Mariners move is a very bold move by Brodie Van Wagenen. It's something that Sandy Alderson never in a million years would have considered. Parting with young prospects to bring back a middle-aged second baseman. And I don't want to hear about how he's old, right? I don't want to hear about it. We talked about that already. But Van Wagenen went bold, went big with his first move, and I don't think it's the last move. I think it's the first of a few bold moves that Van Wagenen is going to make this offseason. Finally, I want to just touch on the fact that in this deal with the Mariners, the Mets were able to hang on to Jeff McNeil. And I think that's important. And here's why I think it's important. McNeil's played third base in the minor leagues, so I'm not that concerned about him, quote, losing his position at second base. I understand that he's a average third baseman, which is fine. And here's where I think the value is with McNeil. So I already mentioned that Robbie Cano profiles as this guy who's going to hit around 300, who's going to slap the ball all over the field, who drives the ball to all fields, who doesn't strike out a ton. What does that sound like? It sounds a lot like Jeff McNeil. And for my money, I would much rather have a team of Jeff McNeils and Robinson Canos, guys that can hit the ball for power when they need to, but also don't strike out a lot, also get on base, also hit the ball to the opposite field. You can do so much with players like this in terms of flexibility in the lineup, hit and run, sacrificing with smart hitting the ball to the right side when there's a guy on second base and nobody out, and get him over to third. These kinds of hitters are rare in 2018 going into 2019. And the Mets are lucky to have been able to hang on to McNeil. I know he's not a prospect, not like a prized prospect like a Kelenic and Dunn are. He's 26 years old, is McNeil, but he is already shown over the course of a half a season that he can be productive at the major league level. And I think with Cano being added to the lineup, McNeil's going to be shifted down toward the bottom part of the lineup, maybe the 7 hole. We'll see, but we'll see how the lineup unfolds. But having a second bat like that in the lineup can only help. It cannot hurt. And I'd love to see more, as I said this about the Red Sox, I'd love to see more teams start developing these kinds of players and understand they can hit home runs, but that's not the only thing they can do. And I think that's important. And I think McNeil in the lineup with Cano is a huge thing for the Mets. And look, if we're trying to compete now, It doesn't make sense to trade away Jeff McNeil because he can help the team right now. And it might have been nice to keep Jared Kelenic, who might become the next Mike Trout. But he could just as easily become the next Fernando Martinez, and he can't help the Mets until 3 years from now. So that's where it is for me. I'm happy about this deal. I don't know how it's going to unfold and how it's going to work out, and I hope it works out positively for the Mets, but we'll have to see. So we're going to talk more about this deal as it unfolds throughout the week. The physicals are going to be done, I imagine, today and or tomorrow, and once that's all cleared and done, the deal will be officially announced. There'll be a press conference, and I'll probably have a video to talk about where things stand there. And we'll follow this Kluber stuff and see what's going on with that as well. So until that time, I thank you for watching. I appreciate it as always. If you're not already doing so, follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. Or you can leave a comment below this video in the comments section. Until next time, thanks for watching. And as always, let's go Mets.